It's a Fan Club Project podcast. It's your boy Trey in the Carolinas. Subscribe, like, and follow.
Now, listen to my interview with my very own daughter, Dominique. I'm in the studio with my daughter, Dominique. What's up?
Hey.
Hey, you wrote a short story called Mr.Poe.
Yep.
What is it about first?
So, Mr.Poe, it's really a dinner about the dinner between a fan of his and Edgar Allan Poe. So, kind of a fan getting really into this meeting and then the outcome of it all.
You say it's a meeting. It's a meeting between who?
Well, she doesn't have a name.
Oh.
You just get small descriptions of her throughout the story, whoever she is. All you know about her really is that she is a really obsessed fan.
What made you write this book? A short story.
So this will also help with what it's about. So this was originally a project for my English class, and we either had to write a fairy tale, do an analysis, or write like a short story for a dinner, which was something that my teacher had seen on a show, like a dinner between fictional characters. And we had to choose a character that we had reviewed throughout the semester. And one of the characters was Edgar Allan Poe. And I grew up with his material. I've always liked his work, and of course I was excited about that during class when we went over his poems and short stories. So that's what prompted me to write this, and I ended up really getting into it.
Okay, so you say you're a big Edgar Allan Poe fan.
Mm-hmm.
What was one of the poems you like most? Was it poems? Yeah.
Well, he has a few different poems. One that I really like is it's one about Annabelle Lee, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's about the cat that ends up being stuck in a wall. Really creepy, and also the classic, The Telltale Heart.
Okay, so those type of poems are kind of really morbid.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes can be depressing. Is that like a reflection of you on the inside?
I mean, I find things that are kind of macabre more interesting. I mean, I've had my share of like dark thoughts or whatever. I mean, never against someone else, but it's interesting to read these things because it's not what you expect. It's not normal. It's not a sign of a stable person. So I've always been very inquisitive and very curious. So when I read things like this or I watch creepy movies, I always think, what prompted this? If this was a real person, why are they like that? Because I'm into psychology as well. So it's kind of like getting to dive deep in a mind that you're not used to. So it, like I said, it just makes it interesting to me.
So you like Edgar Allan Poe, which we established is a morbid person.
Yeah.
What type of movies are you interested in? Is it pretty much the same line or something else?
Now I do like scary movies, not gore. I hate gore. But like ghost movies. I like suspense thrillers, but I also do like actions movies. Oddly enough, one of my favorite is comedies. So even though I do like things on the darker side, I love a good laugh. So comedies and romance are definitely right up there. Got to have a good balance.
Right. So with Mr. Poe, getting back to the short story. If someone I read the short story, and it starts out where it starts out. It's a dinner. I'm glad you explained that. So it's a dinner with your favorite author.
With your favorite character, person, however.
Okay. All right, so it's a dinner, and kind of give me an idea what happens without telling the story all the way.
So you want to know where it started?
Yes, where it started.
So it doesn't start out as the dinner. It really builds up to it. So you get the surroundings of her, the nameless woman, and she's reflecting, and she's thinking about the dinner. So it kind of rewinds itself. You start at the end, and then the story rewinds to the beginning, where she actually meets Edgar Allan Poe, and then that leads into the dinner, and you get more insight on each of the characters, and then you come back to the end. So it's really a full circle type deal.
For some reason, I always thought Edgar Allan Poe was British. So I was because, like your mom said, I listened to it in English accent. So I always thought that maybe because a lot of English, I listen to a lot of interpretations because I like a lot of EU stuff. I think maybe I heard it there a lot. So for the longest time, I thought Edgar Allan Poe was British, or I don't know, the stories from across the pond, so to speak. But you say Edgar Allan Poe is American.
Yes, he is an American author. I think a lot of people would probably think that he was British, especially with the literature that's covered in English classes. A lot of them surround British authors. So it's just natural to think that, but he was an American author.
Yeah, and I understand you do a pretty good British accent.
I can.
Can I hear some of that British accent?
Well, sure. I guess it depends on what you want me to say.
Give me the first sentence in your short story.
Okay. I had laid there with the slightest grin on my face, still thinking of the evening that had just finished.
See, that now I could listen to that. That's the way I want to hear it. I don't want to hear it in American for some reason. Now read it in American style.
I had laid there with the slightest grin on my face.
Well, with that voice, I can hear it. So, yeah. But I mean, I always thought it was more interesting to hear it in the English. I don't know, something about the English sharp. I don't know.
It's a bit enchanting.
It's enchanting. Oh, that's a good word, enchanting. Because I watch Game of Thrones. I think that's what it is. Like all the enchanting medieval stuff.
Yeah.
Did you get that stuff from us, the house?
I did.
Probably.
I did. Growing up on all of that, definitely.
So you just graduated college. What is it? Has it been like after graduation? And you have a degree where?
In fashion marketing and management.
Okay.
So pretty much the business side of fashion, everything except for designing, and yeah, pretty much just designing.
Now I find it really interesting that you got a business fashion degree, yet you produced a short story as if you've taken literature or at a you went to Art Institute, which is an art school, but you produced a literature, Mr.Poe, as if you went to a what other school we could call out that produces journalism and writers and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, although I went to an art school, I still find literature creative. I mean, it's one of our core classes. So at any other school, I mean, I would still be taking English, but I've always had a love for literature and writing. Even as a kid, I mean, you know, this like I would write, and I got that from you and Mama. Like I remember as just coming up with poems on the fly, just sitting outside, just looking up and coming up with random things. And then Mama loves to read all the time, and she would read to me. So it was always really ingrained in me. And this isn't the first story that I've written. I wrote a story, I think, around 4th grade, and it was kind of a scary story then, too. I don't remember what happened to it. Unfortunately, I lost it, but I think at one point I started writing another one. If it wasn't a story that I was writing poetry. And the content of it just depended on how I was feeling. And whether or not I was writing, I always had ideas of things that could be stories. It's a form of entertainment, and it's also very creative. It's just the execution that might be a little more difficult. I mean, depending on who you ask, either way, creativity is never really easy. But I've just always had some kind of interest in it. It just happened to manifest in that second English class that I had in school.
Cool. What is why is creativity so important to you? And like, how do you see creativity as being a help to the earth, to the community?
Well, creativity is behind everything. A lot of people focus on the logistics of things, but a lot of the time people leave out creativity. We wouldn't have anything that wasn't created by nature if it wasn't for someone creating an idea, if it wasn't for someone thinking outside of the box and being like, okay, what can we do with what we have here? Can we create something entirely new? Do we have to use what's right in front of us? So if you think about houses, you need creatives for that. Books, like I said, literature, you need creatives. Movies, even things like anything dealing with architecture or coming up with the pencil, the pen, the microphones that we're using. Somebody creative thought of this idea and then had it executed.
That's very creative of you to think of that. So yeah, of course, yeah, and I apply that myself when I do flyers and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. People need images. People need colors because everything now operates on inspiration. Well, I think from the beginning of time has always been operating on inspiration. Yeah, and I think data was added in later. But how can people who are actually looking into going into a creative field, what is the advice you would give students that are going to school for creativity? What type of direction would you offer them with your own experience?
Well, I would say whatever you do creatively, be confident. It's very easy as a creative to doubt yourself. We're always second guessing. Will somebody like this? Does it make sense? I mean, I did that with Mr.Poe a lot, but at the end of the day, someone is going to like your art, your work, your creativity, your mind, and put yourself first when you're being creative. It's an expression of your inner self. Someone will understand it. And even if they don't, someone will appreciate it. You just have to be open enough to express yourself and allow that expression to flow freely and get to the point where you feel satisfied with the final product that you're producing. It's okay to go back and edit the things that you've done, but also never throw away things that you've done before. Use it as inspiration. Like, you can only get better with your creativity. You can only get better with your expression. And remember, it's a reflection of you. As long as you're happy with what you produce, that's the most important thing. And if you want other people to enjoy it, someone will.
And Mr. Poe, you said it was a class project, right? Mm-hmm. What grade did you get on Mr. Poe?
I got an A.
Got an A.
Yeah.
That's real good. Got an A. And you stayed on the dean's list also. I have to throw that out there.
I did.
Yeah. Have anyone besides your parents, or your teacher read Mr. Poe?
I mean, my classmates. That's really been it. Like one other person, my significant other, he's read it, but that's really it. I've really been nervous to just kind of let it go, but also it's still a process. So until I'm satisfied with the final product, I don't want to just release it. It's a slight work in progress, but it's almost done. So I am excited to get it out. Other than that, no one's read it.
Okay, and so for the ones who have read it, what type of feedback have you gotten from it?
I've gotten pretty good feedback that it was interesting. I know my classmates, some of them said it felt a little long for a short story, but it might just depend on your personality, because there are ones that are definitely longer than this one. Mama loved it because she loves Edgar Allan Poe, and she's into things that are sort of macabre as well. My teacher enjoyed the story. So I've mostly gotten some pretty good feedback on it. There might have been like a little tweaks, but of course, it was like technically a first draft when I first put it out.
And other interviews I've done, people who've done works of art, books, plays, and stuff like that, they always say that it poured out of them. So when you started writing, did the words pour out of you and kind of went to paper, or is it something that you really had to think about?
It's really funny. When I wrote this, sorry, it was the night before.
So this was a rush job.
It was, but at the same time, it wasn't. I did do it the night before, so of course it was last minute, but while I was typing this out and thinking, it just flowed freely, like, oh wait, that makes sense. Like, it took me almost no time to finish this story, and I was so satisfied with the final product, so it just came to me naturally, really.
So I'm hearing the same beat when I talk to other inspired people. It pours out of them. Something that's given to you pours out of you on paper. Now, and like me, you probably work really well under pressure.
I do.
And that's where I do my best work. When I'm up against the time, the best work comes. I don't know why. So that's the same for you?
It's definitely the same. I've tried to do things well in advance, and it just does not work. I just have this major blockage, and my brain just stops working. But like you said, once I'm up against the clock, things just start to roll. It just pours out.
It's like a superpower.
It is.
Yeah. When you're pressured, it's like a superpower. That just actually, I'm pretty sure a lot of people are like that. Who is this short story for? I know it wasn't intended to be released, but now it's actually good enough to be released. And who do you think this short story is for, Mr. Poe?
Definitely fans. Anyone who's interested in fan fiction, people who like mysteries, anyone who is into anything that Poe has written, really. Because one thing that I tried to ensure, one thing that I actually had to do, was put Poe in my story. So anyone that enjoys his work, I think, will be able to appreciate Mr. Poe because they'll see a reflection of it. It'll connect for them. So fans of his, fans of people who like his work or work similar to his, definitely.
Do you plan on writing any more books in the future? Or short stories?
I think I would. When it comes to me and writing, I really have to have a spark because I'll have ideas all day long, but it's difficult for me to get it out on paper. So I don't think that this will be my last one. I just have no idea when my next one will be. Now, in the future, I wouldn't mind lengthening this story. So maybe that can be something that people can look forward to if you enjoy Mr.Poe when it does end up being released.
Cool. And before we go, I got to hear the English accent one more time. Can you find another sentence? Give me a longer sentence. Just a little short sentence out of the Mr. This is Mr. Poe. Short story, read English by American girl, my daughter, Dominique.
I never knew they were so heavily intertwined with your personal life. I'd only thought your characters were strictly fiction for the most part anyway. Well, I guess every writer does need inspiration, and what better than one's own life experiences?
It's the Fan Club Project Podcast.